Welcome back for episode 32 of Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And me, Robbie.
And continuing our little Halloween spooky season is our next episode on our favourite horror TV.
And it's kind of, we're kind of jumping on the back of the bandwagon with stuff like Midnight Mass and Squid Games now being out.
Yeah.
And kind of thinking, well, whilst these things are popular, we might as well kind of hit some, some alternative recommendations, some other suggestions that we might have for people, some kind of potential hidden gems or some things that we think are kind of good horror TV series that are out there. We're trying to steer a little bit clear of some of the ones that people know and bigger. So things such as Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that. So when you're thinking about horror TV, so when I was thinking about this originally, I wrote down a few and was like, yeah, they're good. I think this time I may have made the mistake by going, just jog my memory just to make sure I'm not missing anything important. And I was like, holy fuck, there are so many that have been made that I've just forgot over the years.
Yeah.
Straight away, this is explicit.
It's always explicit.
I went straight to but yeah.
It's obviously,
yeah, so like you said, with some of the more popular ones, like avoiding those little like kind of tropes, but also, with horror TV, I think like the time of year we're into October now, we're building towards, we're all looking forward to Halloween coming around and getting proper into it. But I think for a lot of people, like this whole month is just like, I just want to binge horror.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And quite often, obviously, we think films, but so far we haven't really talked a lot about TV.
I think we've had an episode about TV, haven't we?
No, this is our first one. So, and this isn't necessarily our best.
No.
So it's favourite horror TV, and it's some of a selection of our few. And this probably isn't the only time that we'll do one like this, because as I said, there are so many that we could pretty much spend episodes just talking about certain TV series. This is more just kind of picking out some of those ones that might be good recommendations for this time of year, and just some that are generally some of our favourites.
Yeah.
We're going to have the old, you have three choices, I have three choices.
Yeah, we are, as we do.
Yeah.
We go between 3 and 5, don't we?
We kind of split, it depends. But when it's top 5, we normally call it the top 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, and even as I told Rob before, I've actually written down what I think Rob's choices will be. We will see if I'm correct or not. He I believe he may have tried to subvert expectations. So,
well, I actually think I think I told you what I was going to do the last time we recorded an episode, but I imagine you forgot.
Yeah, I've completely forgot that.
I think there'll be one you'll definitely get, which will be the last one I mentioned, and then potentially another one, because with horror TV, there are a lot out there.
Oh, definitely.
There's a hell of a lot. I mean, recently I have been watching Midnight Mass, so you're not going to find that on the list, to be honest. It's fresh out now. There's no point in recommending it when it's hot on the trot.
It is, yeah. So I wasn't going to recommend Midnight Mass.
I'm halfway through at the moment. Shit's just kicking off, and I'm loving it.
I can't remember. I'm not. What is it? 7 episodes long.
7 episodes.
I think I'm only on episode 3. So even though we started, like we were into it over a week ago, for some reason it was one of those where we were me and Charlotte were both like, we definitely want to watch this. We absolutely loved Mike Flanagan's other series, and we were like, we definitely want to watch it. We started watching episode 1. We're really into it. Episode 2 we started, but then we're like, we're really busy, so we'll have to do work at the same time. And then we quickly realized at the end of episode 2, we're like, no, we can't do work at the same time.
Yeah.
I gotta be able to pay attention to this, and I can't pay attention if I'm doing it. So we end up having to rewatch part of episode 2, then do episode 3, and just no, we're gonna have to wait until we can actually sit down and watch it properly.
That's one of the things I find is different with watching a horror movie and watching a horror series. When I watch a horror movie, sometimes I can stick it on and I can do things in the background a little bit. I can go on my phone, I can do stuff like that. Yeah. But when I'm watching horror series, I kind of need to be glued to them. So the same thing happened. I watched episode 1 and I thought, okay, I'm into this. I spoke to my friend at work, Ross, about it. Shout out. And he told me about it. I kind of knew what was what was happening. He didn't have a clue about anything. We're working on a bubble system at the moment, so I haven't seen him since watching it. So I imagine he's probably watched one. I'll catch up with him. So I watched the first episode and I was like, yeah, I'm into this.
Yeah.
And then on the Sunday, I didn't really have anything to do. And it was one of those rare Sundays where I didn't have anything. So I watched another 3 episodes back to back, I think. Loved it. And then I didn't have the time across the week to kind of sit there and dedicate it to it. Because I think with a series, you have to pay a lot more attention, I find.
Oh, definitely. That, I mean, definitely with this style of series, you've got to have that kind of attention because it's quite a slow burn, but it's got all these little hints, little Easter eggs that kind of build towards as you're getting towards the end of them. And I know exactly what it's like with these. In fact, this is a good point anyway, because I wasn't going to say Midnight Mass, but I'm going to do my first one.
Yeah, jump into it.
This makes a lot more sense right now while we're talking about Midnight Mass, because Mike Flanagan's. You know what? I've kind of cheated a bit here because I've just said Mike Flanagan's Netflix TV series.
Oh.
Because I wasn't going to say Midnight Mass, but I was picking between Hill House and Bly Manor, and I was just like, you know what? It's much easier to we'd had a little discussion in a prior episode.
Yeah, we had
not about the haunting of about the fact that I was watching. So this is actually shout out all the way back to last Halloween when we did our alternative horror recommendations.
Yeah,
and at the start of that, we actually discussed quite a bit about Hill House and stuff like that, and I was recommending it to you and saying that I was only part of the way through Bly Manor and I wasn't loving it quite as much as Hill House and things like that. So that was like in that episode, those recommendations have already kind of been built in, but go back and watch that one from last year because it was a good one.
Yeah,
I was listening to that just before today. So yeah, I mean, to talk about that kind of slow build. So obviously, I don't know where Midnight Mass. So I'm in the exact same place with Midnight Mass, where right now I am enjoying it, but I know that with his, when you get to the final 2 episodes, the shit will just go way up.
Nice.
Like it's slow build for a reason, but it's not until you get near the end. You got to stay invested. If you give up in the first couple of episodes, then you're missing out on a treat.
Yeah.
And with The Haunting of Hill House, and I'm not going to give you any spoilers.
Yeah, don't.
Because you
I still haven't got around to
I've been recommending it to Rob for ages, but he's still not watched it yet. Hopefully Midnight Mass will make him want to go, I'll check out the other one.
It probably will.
So, yeah. The Haunting of Hill House is, just like anyone who's watching Midnight Mass now, it's just so well built with this family of characters, each who are built with this, and you know the basic idea of Hill House anyway. You've watched The Haunting or House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
Not that those are exactly the same as the original story that he's basing it on. This is more of the original book.
Yes, Liam Neeson and Jeffrey.
Yes, it's Owen Wilson getting his head taken off by no. This is not it. This is more of like family psychology.
Yeah.
This is psychological in nature. This is a whole family who doesn't know whether what they witnessed in the house when they were children, was it real or was it supernatural? Was it their minds that played tricks on them? Are they forgetting things? Is this childhood trauma or is this real? And that's where that kind of goes. It's that kind of balance between each character. Every episode, you kind of have a different character and you find out a different backstory for each character. And it's like to find out what their life was like as a child, things like that. So that's the basic construct of the Hill House and how it works until you get to the end when it's all of them together kind of thing. And that's kind of a nice way that it works with Hill House and with Mike Flanagan's direction. But it's with his, I'd say so far of all of the ones that I've seen of his, though, Hill House is still the scariest because it just has points where, one, it's children. So a lot of the backstory is all about them as children. So you've got children, which is always adds a bit of a creepiness to it anyway.
Yeah, it shatters innocence, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's got that very kind of creepy. You've also got some very creepy shots that are very reminiscent of the one he went on to do with Doctor Sleep, like The Shining.
Yeah,
where you've got the two girls, the twins.
Yeah,
that kind of shots. But it's one of those ones where it's not in your face. It's like literally like you're just watching a shot and you're like there, like you're watching two characters in the scene, and then it suddenly just pops into the corner of your eye. It's like, holy fuck, in the corner of the room. But if you go back and look on them, like it's like they were there the whole fucking time. How did I not notice until like right then that something is stood in the corner watching them? It's like, holy shit.
And I picked up some of that in Midnight Mass.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing that I from watching Midnight Mass and Midnight Mass, Doctor Sleep, Hush, they're the only things I've actually seen by Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
But he does a lot of this kind of, it kind of plays in your subversion, you know. I'm thinking particularly one scene in Midnight Mass where, I mean, if you did film studies or anything like that, you're kind of tailor-made and you're kind of taught that the center of the screen is the focus.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna make any jumps or any scares or you're trying, you know, anything, you put whatever it is in the center of the screen.
Yeah.
And what Mike Flanagan seems to do is he seems to put things off center.
Yeah.
Keep them there, and you'll be watching it, and you won't realize for a split second until you've noticed that there's something stood there, and it kind of, you know, it kind of takes you off guard a little bit. And that's the thing that I loved that he's done a couple of times in Midnight Mass. So that he continues.
Yeah.
Well,
I think one example in terms of that, and you'll definitely be like, if you've seen it, you'll definitely be interested. And this isn't really a spoiler, but and this is all the way in the first episode.
Yeah.
But it's the cat's eyes.
Yes.
The cat's eyes that it took me a while to be like, what
exactly.
And then it's like, so if you know, you know. But it's
know,
the cat's eyes, like, and I won't lie that one or two of them occasionally look like that's just someone moving lights around. But you know what I mean? Like that's someone behind a black sheet or something just moving. But still, I was like, oh shit, I didn't notice that at first. And that's how long has that been going on? Exactly. I think I rewound and was like, that's been going on the entire time.
That's what I did.
And then we got.
Yes.
And look at your Carrie as a running thread in our episode, but I was just like, there, like, is she watching me right now?
And she is.
Yeah, she is.
Yes.
She is above us, as she should be.
As she should be. But no, he does that kind of a lot, doesn't he?
He's got an amazing idea with like his cinematography, like the amazing set, the way that certain things are crafted in that scene are just brilliant. And in Hill House again, with like again, I'm avoiding spoilers because I don't want to ruin it for an old Bobby here, and I don't want to ruin it if you've never watched it before.
Yeah.
Because there are ones like you're just like talking with the kids at a breakfast table, it's a family dinner and stuff like that, and you just like, I think in the corner there's like one bit where it's like the pantry or something like that on a or a shelving unit, and just like in between the cans, you just don't notice there's someone just stood there just watching.
Yeah,
like it's just like, what the fuck is going on? And like this is kind of an overview of thing, but if I move across to kind of like Bly Manor, I think maybe the thing I didn't love at first when I watched it last time was more of that it's slow build, and it probably is even slower than Midnight Mass or Hill House. It is slower. The story takes longer to kind of. It's still this kind of haunted house kind of story, but it's got a lot more. You've got to get used to the British kids and things like that, which can be give or take. Sometimes they're like, yeah, they're really good, and sometimes they're like, oh, they're a bit annoying, aren't they? They're kind of grind. And they do have a little bit of this. One of the voices is the same girl that voices Peppa Pig. Like, so it's a bit like, holy fuck, I'm listening to Peppa Pig. So it's like, there's a little bit of that, and it's led by the same, like, a lot of the same cast from the first series comes back for as in Midnight Mass, not all of them, but we have some of the same. So, for instance, we have, like, I'm blanking, I had his name in my head a second ago, and it's gone. He's from E.T. He plays the child in E.T., and he's the dad in Midnight Mass. You know, the dad with long hair thing. There's that whole scene where they have the dancing and stuff. He's been in all of Mike Flanagan's, and he was in Doctor Sleep as well. And he's why can't I remember his name? Anyway, he played Elliot in E.T. Yeah. Okay. So he's that. Like, it's a weird thing that I didn't know until I knew. I was like, oh, holy shit, it is. Yeah. So same cast kind of pops up through each. I know why they'd want to do it because it's. You know, as an actor, you get to play a different type of role each time, and he has got to play a different type of role in all of the roles he's had in this kind of film. So it's nice that we get that kind of change around with the cast. But we also, in Bly Manor, I think it builds a little bit more on. Occasionally, there's maybe a little bit more kind of gore when it actually hits to it.
Yeah.
Points, and it also has a little bit more. It's very much is built into that ending. Like, where is this going? And it kind of, the mystery of it is even bigger, I think, in this one. So that's kind of why it is, you've really got to stick with it. And it's got much more of a, whereas the first one is more of a terrifying, but also like as if like years of trauma having to let go in Hill House. This one is much more of a kind of that's emotional in its own way, which is what makes it great as well, is that he builds in this emotion underneath that kind of is really quite raw and could be related to something that people could really relate with.
Yeah.
And I think Hill House is one of those that definitely got to people. And Bly Manor has also this same, possibly more, where the ending turns out to be actually it's something more like of a sad twist than it is than it is a horrifying or scary twist. It's kind of like strange like that. But like Bly Manor is like because the book it's related to is like the lady in the lake.
A Turn of the Screw?
Turn of the Screw, yeah. But it's got undertones of the lady in the lake as well. So it's kind of that's part of the Bly Manor kind of. But yeah, it's anyway. That was it's only because I think recently although we have a lot of horror TV shows, and we've had a huge uprise in horror TV, especially say when, like we mentioned before, like The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
When The Walking Dead became like the biggest show on TV, and it was a horror show. Since then, we've had a huge extra rise. Between that and American Horror Story, we've had a huge rise in like different types of horror TV shows. Some are teen and throwaway kind of fun kind of thing. You know what I mean? Some are like have depth and stuff like that. But I'd say like when you mentioned about like horror that you don't really always have to pay attention. There are certain ones. I know there are schlocky ones. I'd say like even like Friday the 13th. Sometimes you could look away for a while and be doing something and look back and be like, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. We've got to it. But I think with everything so far that Mike Flanagan's done, even film or things like that, like even Doctor Sleep, you don't look away.
You kind of glued to it, aren't
you? Are kind of stuck on it. And once you get that, I think you do sometimes have to like push through it. Midnight Mass is actually possibly draws you in a little bit faster, I think, than maybe the other two do at first. So you've got to kind of stay with it a little bit. But maybe Hill has a bit more. But I think it's that. It's that you are glued in, and that's what makes a good horror TV show, is that you don't want to look away. And some of them, because some of them are longer, more serialized, not just a limited series and stuff like that. Some of them do have. I mean, like I really do enjoy The Walking Dead. I'm behind on several seasons, but as I know, it's not going to be one that I'm going to mention. But at the same time, it is one where, that's also one where I probably have watched a lot of episodes just doing something else at the same time because it's filler. Because they made the series longer to like 16 episodes. Which the second you do that, the first two series were much tighter because they were shorter. As soon as you add in more and more episodes,
it got filler.
And it's the problem with a lot. This happens more often, unless it's a limited series like this Netflix one, or it's a British one, like things like that, or like on like HBO or something like that, where they've always done to do shorter things. Yeah. If it's like a standard network one, they always end up being a bit bloated. Like where it's like you could have cut that off like 10 episodes ago and just done a nice tight 10 episode series instead of a 22 episode series. And I don't think I've got any like that where I've got a proper. I've got one which is better than that. But yeah. That's my first choice. It is Mike Flanagan. A brief overview there, and you might have to watch it. We might have to come back to that one and actually talk about it once you've seen it. It's a bit harder.
Yeah,
so I don't want to ruin it for you.
Well, my first one is actually it is an anthology series. It's not American Horror Story. No. So I originally did start watching I watched the first 2 seasons of American Horror Story, and I found it good, but I found it kind of started to become a little bit too like style over substance, if that makes sense.
I mean, Ryan Murphy is a very stylized kind of person, He does so many random different, like he does American Horror Story, but also Glee and stuff. It's like such a random mix.
It's a very random mix that he does. And the series that I'm actually talking about is Slasher. So
1 point for Seth. Yeah, that's on my list for Robbie. I'll show you the list to prove it at the end.
I will.
It's right here. But I knew Slasher was what I expected to be on your list.
That was the one
because you've talked about it a couple of times in the past.
Because I mean, it follows a similar formula to American Horror Story.
Yeah.
In the fact that it's about 8 or 10 episodes a season. Each season changes a different story and a different, completely, and they're not related at all. But then you have some recurring actors and stuff like that. But the thing that I find most interesting about it is that it all of the seasons are kept relatively modern day, so there's not anything too far fetched jumping around or anything.
Yeah.
And for the most part, you don't really there's as far as I can remember, you don't really get any kind of supernatural aspects or anything like that. It's all kind of a bit more grounded, a bit more whodunit sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's slasher.
Slasher.
It's a slasher film, like, so it's staying away from those supernatural tropes, I guess.
Yeah, it's just started its 4th season, and the 4th season became exclusive to Shudder. The first season is about this serial killer called the Executioner, who was caught the night of that he committed these killings.
Yeah,
and he gets put in prison, and then they start like 30 or 40 years later. The second season is about these camp counselors who return to the camp that they were at to check on a body. I think that's not a spoiler, you're supposed to know that. And it's kind of been taken over by this kind of hippie wellness retreat.
Yeah.
The third season is set about somebody gets murdered in this block of flats. And the fourth season, and the fourth season, which has just started, is kind of this.
I've seen like the images. It look very different than the prior.
Yeah,
is that one set in modern day? The latest series?
Yeah, it's set in modern day.
The promo images just looked a bit like the way they were dressed and stuff looked a bit like
they're
older.
They're posh.
Okay,
they're posh.
There you go.
So it's based around this inheritance that these spoiled rich people are getting, and they have to play a game, and the winner gets it.
Oh yeah, it reminded the trailer reminded me a little bit of kind of like a Ready or Not kind of.
It's kind of like that vibe.
Or there's another film like that as well that I've seen that kind of reminded me of something like that.
Yeah, but it's kind of that vibe. But I think it goes back to what you're saying about having a limited series, and it's because it's only 8 or 10 episodes in each one, they're able to tell a lot more of a concise, thought out story.
Yeah.
You get some of the deaths that you get are absolutely great. And it kind of it has that stuff where, because you have actors playing recurring characters, it's kind of cool to be able to see somebody die, and then the next season they're playing a different character, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to see them die again.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
how are you going to die this time?
Yeah, it's like seeing Sean Bean die. It's like you don't really get bored of that.
No.
But it's just like it's an interesting series because it's filled of quite a few plot twists and stuff like that. It keeps people on the edge of their seats, and they always keep it kind of fresh with what they're doing. With American Horror Story, for me, it kind of became too much of like, okay, we're going to do this like thing where each season's based around like a gimmick, so it's like a hotel, and then it's like it's like at the moment they're doing like a double feature, like vampires and aliens, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it kind of, for me, it just became a bit too much like, okay, we're going to set it up, and then you're going to have a massive subversion twist, and it's kind of like nobody saw it coming, but then you kind of expect that because that's how the formula is.
I think it might. I think it kind of depends on what people kind of like about certain things, though. Because if you really like the slasher genre, then you're definitely going to like something like a slasher kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if it's like you want different kinds of things to change, like I think American Horror Story does change up quite a bit, though.
Yeah, definitely.
The first season of that one anyway is better than is better like than the second series. But then it's all down to preference because some people think some are fantastic. I think most people agree. The one you said about Hotel with Lady Gaga's pretty shit, but but it depends. Some of them are good. It does have a tends to be up and down.
Yeah.
And like linking back like you said about like if like slasher comes to like a strong like a conclusion, a whodunit, like you have like maybe have I'm happy with that kind of ending.
Yeah.
And I think even linking back to the Mike Flanagan stuff, one thing that he absolutely nails is finales. One thing American Horror Story does not nail is finales.
Yeah.
They have rushed endings as if they didn't really know where they were going with it, and this ends up in a lot of the series of it. Slasher. So I've watched some of the first season, and that's it. I haven't even finished the first season. Now, my only thing with slasher...
Carry on talking.
So I guess the difference is like American Horror Story. One thing is that it does tend to have really strong actors.
It does have
playing
big
the roles.
Yeah, it can
And the
get the
actors
big
kind
names
of
in.
pull it in. American Horror Story is very much a character-based series, so it's not necessarily, although it's horror, it has parts of things that are like weird and strange and things like that. But I wouldn't say it's like full-on horror all of the time with American Horror Story, whereas slashers, from what I know of it, seems a bit more. It's trying to be that exactly what it says. It's trying to be a slasher. It's trying to be a bit more full-on with its. And I don't know how that progressed across the other one. The only thing that threw me off is that I didn't find it was the acting for some of it. I found it a bit stunted.
Yeah, the acting
but that's one thing. As I said, I've only watched part of a season, so I can't say that it. Like, I'm sure it probably gets strong. It was only because some of the actors just kind of threw me off a bit because I was just like, oh, this is, and this was only in the early episodes of season 1. And
Yeah.
I'm sure in season 2 and things like that, they looked at it and went, what could work better, what could be. How could we? Because the second season actually sounds more interesting to me.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
but I don't know. I haven't finished the first one. It is something I keep meaning to go back to because I know they were on Netflix, weren't they?
Yeah, they're on Netflix, and the thing that I've found with it is that the recurring characters are usually the ones that are kind of the most interesting. In all honesty, those are the ones that kind of put on the best things. I think Leslie Hope is one who is one of the recurring actresses.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say Lovell
from 24.
Lovell Adams Gray. I can't. No, it's not him. I can't remember. There's one main character or one guy who's in every series, and yeah, he kind of comes back into each one. And yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes some of the acting can be kind of hit and miss regarding it, but it has a lower budget feel to it than something like American Horror Story. And if you're a fan of stuff of that kind of low budget, I mean, it's Canadian based, so it doesn't kind of have the big backing as
that's what I mean.
Stuff
so
like
I think
American
it's to
Horror
get.
Story.
I think that's the thing. It was something that, like, I think at the time I didn't quite have enough time to be like, I'm just going to give this a go. I think I got distracted by other shows and then I didn't go back to it. And I think it is one of those where it's kind of like, yeah, you maybe, again, you've got to let yourself have a little bit of time because, like, the Canadian ones are obviously like a minute amount of the budget compared to any of the American ones and things like that. So it definitely is like you've got to get a little bit used to it. But I'm sure, I mean, I barely even remember seeing much death in the third. Like, I think there was obviously opening deaths in the third, but there wasn't a lot in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where I'd probably, once I started seeing the actual deaths and stuff, I'd be like, yeah, I'm good with this.
I mean, some of the deaths.
It's like it's kind of more like if I watched Friday the 13th, but I decided I'm not going to watch the death parts. I'm just going to watch the
drama,
character, and then being like, this is not very good.
Some of the deaths that you do see are great. There is, there's just thinking about the fourth season that's just been out. We see somebody gets pushed into a wood chipper, which is great. Somebody gets torn apart by limb by limb style, which is great. Somebody falls on a saw blade.
Oh, sweet.
So you do get,
they've thought about how to, like, that side of it.
Well. Yeah, the gore and that kind of stuff is really well done. And it does kind of feel as if you're watching a bit of a prolonged slasher film, which is, I mean, I guess is the kind of vibe that they're going for. But I always, recommend it as something good that's relatively low budget. And as each series goes on, it's kind of finding its feet a bit more,
Yeah.
But that's one that I would recommend.
Cool. All right. And now I know later in the episode we obviously do have. I've got a few of our audience that have recommended a few, and we've been doing that more and more often. So we'll do that a little bit towards the end and talk about some of the ones that people pointed out. But for my number 2, I've gone to good old Britain for a number 2.
You've gone to Britain for a number 2. Reckon the Blighty Boys. I can't. Let me try and see if I can't. Midsummer Murders, maybe.
No, I've not chosen Midsummer Murders. For our American audience, Midsummer Murders is like a quaint village that seems to have the biggest body count anywhere in the world at this point. It's run for something like, I think it's also like 20-something series of
Yeah.
like episodes. You know, this is British, so it's like 6 episodes a series.
No, man.
No, actually,
Midsummer's
Midsummer. It's more like a soap at this point. I think earlier on it was like that, but
it's a bit soapy.
by this point,
now,
it's like a soap. So yeah, they're just like constant daytime. Like, so that just means they forever run. So yeah. I mean, I'm probably thinking now they may be into high hundreds, maybe even thousands episodes at this point. Like a lot, like
episodes.
I'd say hundreds. Must be hundreds. We're looking that up as we speak. I did not expect Midsummer Murders to be
95.
Oh, fucking hell. What? How is that? I feel like it's been running my entire life.
Yeah, I mean,
This is Britain, I guess. Midsummer, like when we say in Britain it's been running for 20 years, it's 95 episodes.
I mean,
if a show runs for 20 years in America, it's 1,000 and something episodes.
I first started watching Midsummer Murders when I was at school. 1997 was when it launched.
You knew.
I probably was watching
John Nettles as your
John Nettles is the boy. Yeah, of course it would have been John Nettles.
1997. So yeah, we were still when it started. We were like 6 years old.
Yes,
5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I guess I got to finish explaining what Midsummer Murders is. Anyway, it's a small village where basically called Midsummer, where lots of crimes happen and people die. This is not my choice, by the way.
Yes, it is.
It is now. And basically, a detective, for some reason, the same detective who does not look like a village detective, he looks like more like a big city one brought into a small little town. But
isn't that the idea? Maybe he goes to a
I mean, maybe
Midsummer.
Yeah,
because they just have any because it's just Midsummer and then any word. That's the village, Midsummer Norton.
I mean, this is much more a detective show, not really a horror show. Even though it's Midsummer Murders, can't remember if I've ever I actually can't remember last time I even ever watched an episode of it, so I don't know. But I can't remember there ever being any blood or real like showing death or things like that. It was more like one of those crime scene like recreation shows, but instead they've cut out the main part where the person, because it's like this person went missing at this time. This may have happened to them, but we won't show the death because we don't actually know. So we're not going to say we definitely know. But
you saw at least one death each episode. But because it was kind of old, it was like old school, like
it's
around the watershed.
It's aimed at an elderly daytime TV audience.
It was kind of like you would see a pitchfork go into somebody, and then you see the reaction. Or
I would love to know, like, because some of these weird things, like there are people in America who fucking like love EastEnders and stuff like that. Like, I'd love to know if people like in America, like, I fucking love Midsummer Murders.
Yeah, Midsummer Murders. The Pudding Club. That's one episode. That's one episode to watch.
Okay. So, anyway, we started Midsummer Murders because you were making a guess. That wasn't even your proper guess, was it? What was your proper British horror show guess? Have you got one?
No, that's what I mean. Like, there obviously are some. I know Dead Set. That was decent.
Dead Set was one on my list.
Yeah, Dead Set.
Dead Set was good. Big Brother. Big Brother. It was a perfect little setup. For,
a zombie apocalypse happens and the people
with the real actors
whilst Big Brother's going. Yeah, that was cool.
It was a cool concept for a show. It was one of those that led off. I didn't even think about it. I maybe put this more sci-fi, but it's from the same person who then went on to make Black Mirror, Charlie Brooker.
Yeah,
Black Mirror. He went on to do that. So Black Mirror is not my choice. No. Although it has some horror kind of episodes, it's more of a sci-fi.
Yeah.
But no, mine is actually from the same people who made the League of not Extraordinary Gentlemen, the League of Gentlemen, which is a very weird British TV
I love
show.
The League of Gentlemen.
Really twisted humour, incest kind of.
Is it Psychoville?
It's not Psychoville, although I was kind of going to sneak Psychoville into there. It's actually their most recent one, which is called Inside Number 9.
Okay.
It's not. It is mainly horror. It's not always. They change it up. So it's a really like interesting concept for a show where it's an anthology series again, but it's every episode is it's linked to the number 9 basically. So it might be a house that's the number 9, a storage unit that's number 9. It might be a taxi cab that's 9. Something links it to the number 9 throughout. So that's kind of their little doorway into different lives. And as I said, not every single episode is horror based, but because they've got such a background in love of horror, Steve Pemberton and
is it Mark Gatiss?
Yeah, Mark Gatiss. Oh no, actually, this one isn't Mark Gatiss. It's the first one I'm talking about. It's Steve Pemberton and I I'm blanking on his name. The other one.
I can't remember.
He's the other. There were three of them. It was Mark Gatiss who did League of It Gentlemen.
Yeah.
And basically every episode, we have this with like our number 9 episode, but everyone kind of has like, it's almost like scenes of a play kind of thing.
Yeah.
It kind of started out more like that. It's got more elaborate over time because they're now on to like series 7 or something like that. So it's been out for a long time, but it's hugely critically acclaimed. I think they've won all the BAFTAs for it and stuff like that. And it just has episodes that have kind of like where they can just go and do whatever the fuck they want, like kind of thing. It's any area they want to kind of touch upon. So they had one of their recent ones was kind of where a guy goes on, he's like an extra on a film set.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those ITV style crime detective ones that are like just everywhere now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They make them all the time, like real life versions of the murders. And he's meant to be like an extra, and he's got like one line, and he's like practicing while they're practicing like his line, they put him inside of like what they call the green room, but it's actually like someone's shitty trailer, and the family is still kind of in there. So it's a comedy, it's a horror comedy at the same time. But it's someone's like shitty trailer, and then the more and more he's sat in there and talking about it, and like gets to talk with who's the actual main actor on it, who is one of the actors out of Line of Duty and things like that, like who's like quite a big actor. He's talking to this weird family who are like sat with him. They've been paid to sit in the back, but they keep coming back out. And the more and more he sat there and keeps reading, like remembering what it's about and talking to them because they said, "Oh, we were there when that murder happened." The more and more it starts to be like, "Wait a second." Like it starts to sound more and more like they took the child that was murdered kind of thing. And it plays out in the episode like that with little parts where it's like him getting more, and suddenly he thinks because he's the extra, but he's like, but what if I'm the one that solves the case kind of thing?
Yeah.
And he starts like sneaking around, and we get these kind of really creepy kind of suspenseful moments where it's like the daughter who seems a bit off, like she's definitely got some kind of like mental When I got to say that, I was like, am I going to say the wrong word there? But you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. But, I mean, League of Gentlemen always had that kind of weird, like very, not just dark comedy, but kind of like creepiness to it, you know?
Yeah. It's like a lot of people might know League of Gentlemen. Not only there was a film of League of Gentlemen, but it was quite a big hit in other countries as well.
Yeah.
Like say Little Britain. And like Little Britain, League of Gentlemen is a show that basically would never get a chance nowadays.
No.
Because it literally is like tying someone up in a basement, and then the whole Stockholm syndrome and like falling in love and sexual, like being really sexually promiscuous with like, and but at the same time, it was in like, some of it was in weirdly like positive ways and things like that. It had no worry. The actors had no worry about, about any kind of gender form fluid. Like it was all present there long before its time kind of thing.
Yeah.
They were well aware of like what the underground world of like things where people were like hiding out from things, and they brought that out into the public.
Yeah.
Including occasionally like the shop owners who were basically murderers. They were basically the Wests.
Incestors.
Yeah. They were like incest and like they were basically, it was implied that anyone who walked in their shop, most of them don't come back out of the shop.
If you weren't local.
Yeah.
You would have to like suck
You're one
tits.
of the locals. Yes, exactly. Like
suck Bab's tits.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to watch that when I was young, man. It was so weird. I loved it.
It was so strange and weird. Like it has the same. So with like some of that comes through inside number 9. Sometimes it's really weird because sometimes it plays out like a drama, like it's actually being serious. Sometimes it's complete weird comedy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's full on horror. They had an episode where it was like meant to be a TV, like this is like they did like specific horror Halloween specials and stuff, but they even did a Christmas one where it's Krampus.
Yeah.
But there's even ones where it's meant to be specifically like it's another, like they're on it's like a documentary for like the horrors, like it's like a crew, like your Paranormal Activity kind of like, we're going around this studio set where on the set of this soap in like 1962 a huge fire broke out and killed all these people.
Yeah.
But then we start to see like, and they do the whole camera thing where different rooms and things like that, and you get to see like one of the people in there saying, oh yeah, we're just going to set up this shit and make it like that, and it turned into like thing where you actually start to see, if you're watching carefully in the corner, like you see one guy just get completely like, his face just gets completely torn apart, kind of thing, and like all these things start to happen, and they're like, holy shit, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is going on, kind of thing. It's really interesting. They get huge actors in it as well.
Well, I mean, the League of Gentlemen. It was Reece Shearsmith.
That's who it is, Reece Shearsmith. I was thinking Reece, I just couldn't remember the last one.
I mean, they have a lot of kind of links with people. They're kind of well known for being this, linked in with dark comedy and that.
All
sort
of the
stuff.
actors
and even writing,
Yeah, they are huge in British writing and British acting, like the like Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton, well known, and then Mark Gatiss is even bigger. The reason he wasn't part of this one is because he did Sherlock and things like that.
Yeah,
I think even bigger areas.
Yeah, because I most recently watched Sherlock, but I kind of saw that he was in it, and I was like, "Oh, that's Mickey from the League of Gentlemen." Mickey Love with his teeth, And then
he did Dracula recently.
He did Dracula. He's done Doctor Who. He was in Game of Thrones. And I found that he's done a lot of kind of, because I looked at his Wikipedia a while ago, and I found that he did a lot of kind of a lot of writing and screenplays and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. They're hugely talented, but it is this, like, if you really like an alternative kind of warped sense of humor in all of their shows, and even linking to, say, Psychoville, which was not an anthology, it followed lots of different characters, but it did follow one continuous kind of link and strain. Psychoville was great. You followed like a clown who used to be the most popular clown in town, and now he's not, like, for children's entertainment, who becomes this real bloodlust for other clowns. And sometimes you just had like British, well-known, like Dawn French in just a random episode, who was like an obsessive nanny and things like that. They were all linked in. But yeah, Psychoville, League of Gentlemen, and now Inside Number 9, they've got a real streak, and it's really good British horror comedy. Like, not all of it, I'm not saying all of it is horror, but it's all stuff that's got, if you've got that warped, if you want dark, they know dark, but they know how to make dark funny as well. That kind of, like, with a real kind of old British, like, who's going to play, like, what's it, the old who's going to play mother with the tea kind of thing. Like, that kind of weird old, like, thing, but they twist that real posh Britishness into, like, this weird, creepy, like, the person doing it is not the person you want to be pouring you the tea.
They do that, they do the other side, don't they? They do, like, the weird people. Like, League of Gentlemen is a perfect example,
Oh, I haven't watched it in such a long time, but it's one of those where the more I think about it, the more like, I bet I'd fucking love that. I bet that's so... I probably laugh now because it's so un-PC.
I last watched it about 5 years ago. Maybe actually a bit longer. And I was creasing. But it's not only that, it's just so strange. And so fucking weird.
Because when we watched it, when I first watched it, we were kids.
Yeah.
It was like, what is this? Watching these, like, you're not local.
I rented, if you've listened to the show, I rented a lot of VHSs. And whenever I would go and visit my grandparents in Devon, there was a little video shop there, and they would just let you rent things. And I rented
like a good shop.
Like a good shop should.
you could watch. That's basically the locals, isn't it? You can look, but you can't buy because you're not local.
That was basically it. And I rented the League of Gentlemen, and I must have been about 12, 10 maybe, 13. I don't know. I wasn't old. I wasn't old.
I wasn't old like I am now.
I wasn't withered like I am now. But it was class, man. But it's that kind of strange. It's just strange and creepy. Uncanny Valley, isn't it?
It is. If you like, obviously, it's for people outside the UK, some of it you might be like, what? Like, but for us, it even have things like the people in the job centre that they kept going back to with really weird, like, the way they treated the people in the job. The guy that was in there just, like, treated them like absolute shit, basically. Like, was just like in the weird obsessiveness that with some of the other ones where he'd be like, oh, you look good, like, kind of like, what the fuck is going on?
It's just weird.
It will kind of mess with your head, but that might have just been because most of it I watched when I was a kid. So
no, it still does.
But I think it does. I think for most people it was basically, if Little Britain in comparison was tame, compared to League of Gentlemen.
But you can tell where Little Britain got a lot of its ideas from. So
Yeah.
so in the League of Gentlemen, you did have the old Shakespearean thing of men playing women,
Yeah.
So Mark Gatiss played a lot of the women in there that were the focal point, and you did have a lot of that kind of stuff, and you did have these kind of weird, outlandish, larger than life characters encountering normal people or regular people. So it was fucking weird, man. It was absolutely. I need to find it and watch it again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as I said, it's really good.
Little burpy monkey. We are live on air, and you have disgraced our listeners.
That's it. We're done now. It's over. But yeah, that's I don't know if you watch Psychoville, but Psychoville is really good, and I would say wherever you can find it, it's on BBC, all of them. But the Inside Number 9 is really good. Yeah. Most of the time they knock out of the park. Each episode is just a different kind of. Oh, that's really interesting. That's a cool different. You don't get bored because every episode's different.
Yeah,
it's an anthology series, but it's done in a good way. It's not like it's every episode though. It's not every season. It's every episode different. Cool. Your number 2.
So my number 2 is yet again another horror comedy. You probably know what it is. And
I don't know if I put a horror comedy on the list, so I'm going to fail on this one.
Well, it carries on from a franchise I absolutely love, and it stars an actor I absolutely love and an icon of the business, and that is Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Okay, yeah. I was between 2 shows that you would pick. Ash vs. Evil Dead, actually. When I wrote my little list for you this morning, I thought about Ash and Dead, and then I put a different one on because I remembered you a while ago, so I thought you'd talk about one maybe a while ago, and I went for The Strain.
Well, The Strain. I remembered
how much you liked that.
I did love The Strain. To be honest, I did really like. That's when I borrowed your Now TV for about 6 months.
Yeah, for this, I remember you saying you literally binge watched it to get through it because you were worried I'd cut it off.
Yeah,
you were like, I need to finish it before you cut off the Now TV.
Before you cut off my supply.
Yeah.
I mean, that is also a great shout, and I would recommend that. I mean, you have 2 strong seasons. You have Benicio del Toro on board. The shame is that it got cancelled, or it only got renewed for 1 season. So they tried to wrap it up really quickly. So, and a lot of people complained about the 3rd season, but I didn't find it half as bad as people were complaining about. But Ash vs. Evil Dead is something I probably only stumbled upon a little while ago, but I've watched it over and over so much. I love the Evil Dead franchise. I love the first one. I love everything that Sam Raimi's done with it. I love the remake. And the great thing about this is that it kind of follows on from 2, and it's still thematically is kind of the similar. So you get a lot of grotesque and weird imagery. You get a lot of practical effects. You get a lot of blood, but then you balance that out with this strange kind of character arc that Bruce Campbell's gone on. Yeah. I mean, Ash was always very kind of slapstick in 2 and Army of Darkness.
Once they did that kind of, it's so straight because isn't it from the Evil Dead when it's played a lot more straight, and then Evil Dead 2 when it's basically it's the same, but it's as if they then twisted it into this is what we could do with a budget. Yeah, and this is what we could do if I can get away with putting my strange sense of humor into it, kind of thing. And then Ash kind of changed more and more, didn't he, as he went from Army of the Dead and kind of Army of the Dead.
Yeah, Army of Darkness.
Army of Darkness. That's the one. I thought that wasn't right. That's the Army of the Dead's the Zack Snyder. Yeah, but yeah, that kind of transformation. But yeah. Bruce Campbell's badass is that character. Though.
Yeah, and he's great, and they kind of I don't know I know Sam Raimi as executive producer did have a big hand in it, but it kind of feels as if he's done it anyway. You have a great cast, so you've got I'm trying to remember all of their names now. You've got obviously Bruce Campbell. You've got Ruby Rose, I think her name is. Trying to think who else you've got in there. You've got Dana De Lorenzo as Kelly, Lucy Lawless. That's it. I always think Ruby Rose, Lucy Lawless,
Xena,
Ray Santiago. Yeah, Xena. You get Ted Raimi coming back. Yeah. You have all of these great actors and actresses coming on board, playing new characters in this franchise, and it feels like a natural continuation of Evil Dead 2. And 3 to an extent, but 3 obviously ends different. I've only ever actually seen the alternate ending of Army of Darkness. I've never seen the original ending. I only found this out the other day.
Okay.
So in the end of Army of Darkness, in the in the cinematic one,
Yeah.
is when he goes back, and then he goes back to S-Mart or Kmart, and then a Deadite comes, and that's when he says, "Welcome to Kmart," whatever it is. That's why I don't know, because I've never seen it.
Yeah.
The version I've always watched is he takes the potion to sleep and go back, and he wakes up in the future. That's an ending I've only ever seen. So I guess you could say
neither of them are ringing a bell with me. I swear I've seen this film.
Yeah. So I guess you could say it kind of carries on from it.
Yeah.
The good thing about it is, even though it's from this long-living franchise, you don't necessarily have to have any nostalgia. You don't even have to know what's gone on in the previous centuries, because it kind of just picks up and explains things very well. Bruce Campbell's character of Ash kind of has this like onward going trajectory in his character of being like a himbo. He kind of reminds me of like Johnny Bravo almost.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the way he plays it in that way is just. I mean, that's kind of what makes it partially enjoyable. I mean, the fact that he's just so balls to the wall with it.
It is. It's just.
You know what I mean?
It's like a B movie.
Yeah,
but a high budget, well done B movie.
I mean, apart from I'd say maybe the original and the remake, they all are basically like, and that. Let's be honest, Sam Raimi in general. Like, I know he's only he's executive producer. Yeah, so obviously, how much he put into this TV, I have no idea.
I think he'd had quite a lot of involvement in it. I think he might have even directed a few episodes.
But yeah, but I mean, Sam Raimi's always kind of been a bit of a B movie. You know what I mean? The film that our title here is "Drag Me to Hell" is it's a certain way, but there is a kind of. Not everyone would love it, because there's a certain style that he does to it that has that kind of B movie.
Yeah.
Even his Spider-Man movies, the second one, like maybe a little bit more refrained, but the first one definitely has a kind of like. There's definitely a kind of cheesiness to it at times that he would have absolutely loved.
Yeah,
that's 100% intentional. Not a poor director being like, "Oh, I don't quite know how to do this,"
or not knowing what to do.
He knew what he was doing. He just liked that kind of style to it. It's the same reason, actually, in even say Spider-Man 2, he has the whole rainbow. It's to throw in that kind of oddness to it, which kind of worked, and it's always worked with Sam Raimi. So with Ash, him being B movie is perfect.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, the whole franchise is just. It's just kind of incredible. And Ash vs. Evil Dead has this feeling of being fun, but being kind of, like you said, kind of B-movie-esque. I mean, that's... So recently I rewatched the first Spider-Man, and it's still one of the most fun I've had with a superhero film, because it just allows itself to have fun. It's just like... fucking I'm Spider-Man, I'm fighting the Green Goblin, I'm gonna fucking vibe with this, it's just fun.
Yeah, it doesn't take itself, like, I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm saying Tobey Maguire's character perfectly kind of grounds it, because he can be a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
But apart from that, the rest of it, like Goblin and stuff like that, it's just like, fuck it, let's just have fun with this. Like, it's trying to be like what it was in the 60s comics.
Yeah, that's what it's
not
kind of
trying to be like the modern day comics. It was trying to be, I'm going 60s. I'm not going Adam West Batman, but I'm going, I'm going fun. I'm going light with this, and moments of darkness, yes. Back to formula was the thing that brought to it.
Formula.
Yeah, like those things that. I think William Dafoe is a perfect version of that as well.
William Dafoe's fucking awesome. We love him.
But yeah, no. So that is right there. So with Ash vs. the Evil Dead, I'm not surprised. Like I've seen again. I'm on season 1 territory. Still. I've never finished them. So many series like this that I've never fucking finished.
But that's the thing. Like I started this because I was like, I was thinking to myself, okay, like Bruce Campbell's back, great. I heard Sam Raimi was involved, but I was like, how is it going? How are they going to do this over a series? And it's because now Bruce Campbell is older, and this was this was around the time, or maybe even slightly before we got this kind of returning hero, where we go back to things like if you look at the Star Wars films, we're going back this nostalgia trip kind of thing.
Yeah,
or
Jurassic
Worlds,
that
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, how's this going to work and stuff, and is it just going to be another CGI fest, or what is it going to be? And it's just, I mean, I would say it's as good as the Evil Dead films. It feels so much like this is just a continuation of it. If you'd have told me that Sam Raimi was involved and had done it all, I would believe you, because the fight scenes we get are kind of full of these almost, B-movie Schwarzenegger one-liners. Some of the writing is amazing, like, there's a part in it where Ash is saying that he doesn't need people. And he's like, I work great on my own. I'm a lone wolf. and the woman in the back says, lone wolf. And he's, yeah, you get it, And it's that kind of humor where it's kind of like a bit quirky. And then when we get some of the creatures that we fight, the Deadites, the practical effects just look incredible. The monsters we find are just creepy and just weird looking. It doesn't hold back on any of the action or the intensity of the films. We see people's heads getting sawed off. We see people getting chainsaws in the guts, shot. We see all of this stuff, and it all looks incredible. Shout out to the SFX team. No, not the SFX. The VFX, visual effects team.
Yeah,
my lingo. And it's just, I don't know, it just has this incredibleness to it that it's hard to describe. It's the perfect kind of thing that you can watch. It doesn't take itself overly seriously.
Yeah, as a comedy series.
Series.
But no, I can say it's the alpha male, isn't it? He is like an alpha male, and that's kind of, it's fun to watch that kind of character just be, because it's also a little bit delusional in his own brain.
It's like a caricature of an alpha male.
Yeah, I mean, because Ash had kind of come to this point where he was kind of become so cocky and so like in his own, that he'd get his ass kicked all the time, and yet he'd still believe that he's that he's the best thing ever, that kind of thing. And it's fun to watch characters like that think they are the best thing ever. You know what I mean? It's what makes certain characters work. It's things like I'm trying to think of like another example of something that use that. I think it's like Chris Pratt Star-Lord or something like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
not to that level, but you know what I mean? Like he's a cocky asshole and it works. And it's that alpha male that is, there's loads of films like it, but that makes it work kind of thing. And then you've got characters around him that I know I've heard loads of stuff about. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I haven't had enough time to get to know them, but I've heard loads of things about people talking about that the cast that surrounds him actually makes his character better. Whereas sometimes you have like, we still like this character, but you brought in characters that are just like shit. And that's when these sometimes fail, is because you're just like, I don't get these characters at all. They don't match the tone, or the actor just doesn't seem to have got it.
Yeah.
But whereas in this case, I have heard a lot of good things about the cast that surrounds him are really like strong. Yeah. I know Lucy Lawless is good. I've seen her in other stuff, and she's not just Xena. She's actually a really good actress.
Yeah, Lucy Lawless is class.
She's been in a lot of quite sci-fi stuff. So
Dana De Lorenzo, Ray Santiago are both great additions to the cast as well. So you have one, you have Dana who plays Kelly, and she's this kind of just like a fucking badass who kind of doesn't really buy into Ash's shit, but she gets caught into it. And then the opposite of that, you have Ray Santiago, who plays Pablo, who kind of does think that Ash is the best thing since fucking sliced bread, and does kind of praise him. And Ash is kind of like going back to that thing that you said, about him kind of, I know the whole thing about alpha males and stuff is now like proven bullshit, but when you get characters that people kind of think are really cool, like Ryan Gosling's character in Drive, and like the Joker, and like Patrick Bateman, and you get all these people who are like, this is who I want to be like, this is who I think I am.
Patrick Bateman.
Yeah, you do. You get
I'm sure.
Yeah, you do.
People at the gym like matching themselves to, I want to be like that. Probably have never even seen the film. Like,
no, but
in the mirror they stare at Patrick Bateman, and they're like, do you know what context
do you get it? And it's that kind of satirical take on it. Yeah. So Ash thinks he's this great person, but He's kind of like he's incredibly racist to Pablo, but it's like really funny because he's just so oblivious to it, you know.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
this kind of
what
stuff.
normally makes those characters work is though that like the ones that work in certain shows, sometimes they just come across as completely sexist, racist pigs, basically, and they don't work when they're just that. Like, it normally
Yeah,
only works when you give them a little bit more of like a layer that like they obviously don't understand something about themselves, or they don't, or there's kind of like a sad underbelly of it in it at the same time. There's a balancing act, and some of them only have lasted because there's that balancing act that
yeah,
sometimes they are human and they do care about others and things like that. They just are just from the old a generation that doesn't
yeah.
quite get it, kind of thing. And then you have ones that are just out and out, and then that's when it's like, oh no, these characters don't work because you made him too much of an asshole.
Yeah, but another great thing is that you get to see the fallout of the Evil Dead. So
Yeah,
because I mean we get it a lot with this kind of returning to these 80s and 90s and 2000s films. We get to see the outcome, and it's really interesting to see how going to the cabin and encountering the Necronomicon, how that has affected Ash's life and the people around him. So it's just an awesome thing. Like it feels as if it's part of it's just another film. If it had been made immediately after Army of Darkness, you wouldn't know because it's so Evil Dead and it just transitions to it so well.
I think it's probably because some of the plans that they always had that kind of got cancelled, didn't it? Because it wasn't as successful. Things like that,
which is kind of madness, really. But it is,
I mean, but even this didn't, because this got cancelled as well, didn't it? So after the third season, didn't it? So sadly, I know a lot of people were disappointed with that. It's one of those ones that just didn't quite make it. I know there was another show called Stan vs. Evil. Which is very in similar style with John C. McGinley, Dr. Cox at Scrubs. Which I heard was also like hugely well rated. Not exactly the same as this, because that was more of a guy who like was completely out of like his depth. But I heard that was also awesome. Very similar kind of low budget market network that had made the show as well. So I've heard that was also really good, but that only lasted 2 seasons as well before it got cancelled. So and I think the only reason that from what I heard, the only reason Ash vs. Evil Dead even made it to a third season is because it had such franchise recognition. It's what pushed it. And then they were just like, we can't keep doing it. Sadly, people weren't coming out to watch it on the actual network as a shit thing. But this is what we tend to find nowadays. People don't watch it on the network, but then you go onto something like where it streams, and people watch it all the fucking time. Like, there's no balance anymore. Like, one network makes it, and then you've got to kind of pray that somewhere, if they do cancel it, picks it up, because it's like, well, it did amazing numbers for us, but
no. And there's always hope that Netflix might pick it up, or somebody, because there is an Ash versus Evil Dead game coming out. Which has got to cover the whole of the franchise. Characters from it. That's awesome.
And the same people who made not Friday the 13th, the game, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not made by them. It's made by somebody else. No. But you've got a lot of the returning characters coming back who have given their likeness and their voices and stuff like that. So that could help breathe new life.
Well, there is a new Evil Dead though, isn't there? But it's not following the same. It's a female.
Yeah, there is another.
But it's still Sam Raimi's part of that one as well. I think.
Yeah, I think he's.
So I don't know. It's gone in a different direction, or whether people don't know whether actually he might be. It just might not have been revealed yet that he is part of it. We don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily expect if they're making another film for it to be the same comedy as that one.
I've heard it's set in an apartment block and it's got to be returning.
But
to
I heard
it
is more. It is more a sequel to the originals than it is the remake. So I don't know. That's really confusing as to what way it's going to go, because it's like, okay, if it's the originals, well, most of the originals are kind of comedy. So is it a remake to the original kind of one, or what we're doing before it was remade as the same film but with a higher budget? It's a confusing timeline of Evil Dead, but then most horrors like that have a confusing timeline.
They do, unfortunately, man.
But your Ash versus the Evil Dead and what you were mentioning, I was going to jump in, but I was like, I'm not going to jump into mine. But even though the point you were making was a perfect little segue for going into my number one choice.
Well, let's go into it.
So mine does go more into a popular one, but a popular one that's been off the air for a very long time now. and the things you said about comedy,
Yeah.
and the things you said about the perfect, like the way that they do the special effects and stuff like that, and the action perfectly blending together. And it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, class.
I mean, Buffy the Vampire, it holds a place in my heart purely because it was our generation that grew up when we were still kids that would have been watching it on like good old BBC Two after that. Like it was on after like The Simpsons at a time when, now that I watched it back, I was like, actually, some of it's pretty fucking scary to be on at like 6:30 at night. Was actually pretty like, damn, that's actually, because I knew people who used to like, I had friends who like, if they'd come around and I'd be like, I'm watching The Simpsons, and then they'd watch that, they would shit themselves, like, and be like, no, I'm not watching this. Like, I used to have to turn it off because, like, oh, for fuck's sake, they don't want to watch it. Whereas I absolutely loved it. I mean,
I love Buffy.
We know my history of horror films, so we know why even at like age, I don't know, 7 or 8 or whatever I was at that point, like, why I would have been like, yeah, this is fucking great.
It's so good, man.
But yeah, I mean, have you watched it? Because I remember years ago you said that you were watching it and you were getting through. Did you watch it all the way to the end?
I didn't. I will have to admit, I loved the first few seasons. I loved the one with the Master. That was fucking class. Rip to the Master, my boy.
Master was
he was the first season.
Yeah, Master
and then,
was badass.
Then you had Spike came in. Spike was class. Absolutely
amazing.
Spike is the epitome of the like early 2000s, late 90s kind of look.
Oh, yeah, he's the most like of the 90s. I'd say he is by far like the most iconic of that like era of vampire kind of thing. Like the look of him, the style. Obviously, it's Billy Idol as a vampire, but still, it's badass. Yeah. And the nice thing is that character also, to kind of jump, is that character of Spike goes on such a good journey.
Yeah, he gets a good character.
He changes. He is the worst of the, like, not like the word, but I mean, he is an evil son of a bitch when he is full on.
Yeah,
like,
when he's evil.
He is evil, he was full. And this was what was good, is that even when he started to kind of get a conscience and he got his soul back and things like that, he still wasn't not evil. They kind of learned that lesson that they can't just suddenly be, oh, he's a nice guy. Like, he wasn't like, we had Angel, obviously, is that where Angel used to be really evil early on, and he was when he was a bad guy, again, he really worked. But the difference is that Angel, when he wasn't, he just came across as like the nice, like the nice boyfriend material, like bad boy, but bad boy, but boyfriend material.
Yeah,
that kind of bad choices.
Who doesn't love a bad boy?
Whereas Spike was pretty much still a complete like self-centered asshole. But he had that redeeming, like just like Ash kind of thing. He became this character that was, yes, he was an asshole, but at the same time, when he was good, he became the person who would make the right choice, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you rooted for him because you were like, you love to hate him, and then it kind of turned more into, actually, I fucking love him more than most of these other characters.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, the one thing is, this is Josh Whedon, who's now in jail. Not like
he's in jail.
Not in jail. He's like in the cancel culture jail or whatever. You know, he's done some.
Well, a lot came out.
I'm not saying that's for bad reason. I'm just saying that he's definitely been a part of that kind of, you know, like Me Too, things like that, cancel culture. Like,
what was
all
his
of
name?
that kind of.
It's not James Gunn, is it?
No, Josh Whedon.
Josh Whedon. That's
James Gunn got it, but James Gunn, like, there's two opposites. Like, Josh Whedon's got it for basically being a complete asshole on sets. And, and the kind of things he said towards women. Even Sarah Michelle Gellar's come out and said she felt uncomfortable being on set with him.
Because I know
James Gunn was fucking. He was sort of inappropriate jokes on Twitter like 5 years, and he used to be a stand-up comedian who was known for being, you know, kind of out there. Yeah. So all of that stuff came up. That's a big difference, and this is where like cancel culture has a bit of a problem, where it's like, is that the same? You know, you're going to ruin someone's career for a joke he made 20 years ago, okay? But you're also comparing them to someone who's basically sexually molested someone. Yeah, those are the same people, and they tend to get. It's like one way, like, and this is why we're a little bit kind of messed up with our social media and like that's the way the world's kind of fucked in that way. Yeah, because like some of it's really good, positive, but then sadly some people like James Gunn get mashed in with that, and it's just like, just because you did something wrong, you can't learn from a mistake. Now, when it comes to like Josh Whedon's side of things, where it's a little bit more on like actual inappropriate like touching things like that, then yes, I understand, you definitely stay away. But when it's the other side, when it's like, if we make a joke, so if you made a racist joke 10 years ago on Twitter and you forgot about it, it's like you lose your job tomorrow. It's like, is that fucking fair? Like, can we not
when
learn from the fact that when we're young, we've made like, there's quite a few people who've lost things because when they were young, they made a joke when they were like 18 on Twitter, and now that they're an adult and they're like, I don't know, actor or producer or whatever they are on a show. And I think it was on a show like The Flash, like one of them lost his job because he was like 15 and made a joke on Twitter about something that was like about disabilities. It's shit. Like you shouldn't do, and you know. But it's also like,
teenagers are always trying.
When you're a teenager, you make stupid choices. That's it. Everyone has. It's like, I'm sure people have made stupider choices than putting that on social media. Probably people that like ran someone down in their car or so. You know, I still know what you did last summer. Style.
I did hear about the Josh Whedon stuff because I think I know there had been kind of the rumors circulating about it, but that's Hollywood, isn't it? There's always rumors.
There's always rumors of it.
It's the worst kept secret. Yeah. But then I think it was Charisma Carpenter who
back in the day. She absolutely. It was. I know with her. Yeah, she was basically there was a whole like her. What's her character's name? Cordelia. Cordelia. So she was. She leaves Buffy and goes to Angel, the spin-off. And then she gets like fired, like she gets written out like midway through a season, just randomly.
I didn't know she went to Angel either.
Yeah, so she was a key character in Angel, and she was like a main character. And she was apparently such a better character on that show. They'd kind of completely turned around, and then in like one episode, they make her do something like Angel has a son who's like really inappropriate age, and they wrote it so that she sleeps with the son and then dies. Like it's like, and it was basically, and then like now years later, she was like, he wrote that as a fuck you because I wouldn't do certain things kind of thing. Like, so that's it's really fucking. I haven't watched Angel. I did want to watch it purely because I know that like Spike is in the show at some like for quite a bit of it as well, and because I really like Buffy. So I don't know. Come out with your. Some people I've even heard say Angel was better than Buffy. So
I heard it was shit.
I mean, but it got cancelled and didn't get an ending, unlike Buffy, whereas Buffy does have an ending, and it does have a very action-packed, cool ending, and some. Which has some parts where some main characters do die in really not the best way. Like one of them dies really like quickly, and it's really like, oh, really? Like that's a bit. And then the I don't know. You haven't watched the ending, so I feel like I can't do spoil. Even though everyone listening probably like, I know that like this was 20 years old.
Yeah, but no,
But yeah, a character dies, and it's like another character's meant to be like the husband, and it's like he doesn't really give like he doesn't seem to suddenly give a shit. Like at the end, they're like looking over Sunnydale and things like that, and it's just like, okay, that's happened, but you don't seem to care that your wife died like 20 minutes ago and she's gone. You don't seem sad. Like it happened so quick, but it's brutal as well, violent, like really violent. But yeah, it's got so many good characters.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
I can't lie. So the whole thing that started on that whole tangent with Josh Whedon is because it's separating things. It's separating the really personal life from the ability as a writer, director, things like that. And I'm not saying that means that he should get to keep doing this thing. I just mean, like, you can't, if someone does, like, it's like Whitney Houston was a fantastic performer, but her personal life was a fucking mess. You know what I mean? Like, her music is amazing, but I'm not going to then be like, oh, she did cocaine like every day. Yeah, we shouldn't listen to her music. I'm not going to say that. So Josh Whedon's, his writing in this is fucking awesome. Like his actual like the script, the dialogue. I mean, the characters like Xander is like another. His as a personal life as an actor now, he's fucking god, and also his life's a fucking mess. Like he's a complete train wreck. But
I know he fell off.
Character back in the day, I think he is actually just been put into prison just recently. So for whatever offense he's done. But Xander, I mean, fucking hell, this is from the very first episode. I was like, I fucking love this guy. Like, he goes up and down throughout the show, yes. But if you look at the very first couple of seasons, Xander's fucking hilarious. He's like Matthew Perry and Friends Chandler. He's quick-witted. He's fucking hilarious. You want to be him. Yes, his character arc, he becomes a little bit more needy as it becomes more like things like who he's going to stay with and who he's going to be with, things like that, up and down. So him, Willow, I mean, fucking Alison Hannigan as Willow. I mean, she's so amazing. She goes from this timid creature to one of the best episodes is when she turns into Dark Willow. When she turns into, like, we say Dark Willow. It sounds kind of cheesy when I say it like that, but she literally, because of the guy who, there's like a group of nerds kind of thing, and because they kill her partner, she literally strips his skin off of him.
Nice.
And you get to see the literal, but I was like, holy shit, they actually did I was expecting it to cut away, that actually you see his skin turn inside out.
Oh, awesome.
It was like, fucking hell. It's it's awesome when he becomes that. Oh, there you go. Anthony Head is fucking...
Anthony Head is...
why am I blanking on his name?
I'm blanking as well. It's not Charles.
No. This is not a character. Giles.
Giles, that's it.
Giles is fucking... I love Giles. Like, Anthony Head is awesome as Giles. I think towards the end, he's not in it as much in the last couple of seasons. But then that's where we get a little bit of with when the characters start to get older, start to get a bit hard. You're not in high school anymore. You're not in college. We haven't got a set place for you anymore. So now that you're adults, it's like, what do you do? Where do you get? What do we do with you now?
Yeah.
What are we going to do with your characters? And it is when they start to have to deal with real adult decisions. But yeah, I mean, the makeup design on the vampires, I think, is just the way they do it is like iconic. That kind of vision, that leaked off into films and stuff like that, where it had been taken from like early film, but it's very much like the Nosferatu kind of back in the day, where they've taken that kind of and turned it into the fact that their faces change, so you can clearly see. So this isn't like your Twilight vampire where it's nope, you don't. You're exactly the same. Right? The second that they change as the vampire, it's like. That
faces change.
The wrinkled around the nose kind of thing. The teeth come out, the eyes change, and it was so bad, and it's so well done for a TV show. And it was. There's a reason, like it came in right around the time, like a few years into the show, when special effects were really starting to go over from film into more TV. So you were getting more CGI and TV and stuff like that. But weirdly enough. I'd say almost that actually sometimes affected it a little bit because their practical effects were on such a high form that, they didn't need to worry themselves with, CGI and stuff because they were so good at what they did with practical effects. Like we had Seth Green as like the werewolf.
Yeah, I remember that.
As a werewolf. And, like, he was badass, even though sadly he was only in it for like a
couple of seasons.
Yeah, and then he just disappears really quickly. Like sadly, I think that's when his career kind of took off a little bit.
Yeah.
When Seth Green was in lots of movies, like if you remember
back in the day,
the Italian Job and Without a Paddle and all those kind of things. Yeah. A few years he was like Justin Long or or Ashton Kutcher. Like when Ashton Kutcher lasted a bit longer, to be fair, because he's far better looking than the other two lads, to be fair. But
unfortunately,
but for those guys, they had their time. It was that kind of era of Seth Green where he was at one point not a full-on A, but a B movie stuff like that. No, he did A movie, but he was not the full big.
He was getting a lot of work as kind of supporting characters and stuff like that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
As comic relief mainly.
And I mean, the other thing is, for some people, probably what stunted, because let's be honest, let's go with the key one. Buffy the Vampire. Sarah Michelle Gellar was awesome. Sarah Michelle Gellar, probably for some people out there, if you were around our age, Sarah Michelle Gellar is like one of the first ones. Like, holy shit, look at her! Sexual awakening is like, holy shit, look at her!
Everybody had a crush on Sarah. I always liked Charisma Carpenter and Elijah Dushku.
Elijah Dushku, yeah. I was never that keen on Cordelia. I always thought she always had that like tanned kind of fake kind of like.
I liked it.
But anyway, this was and this was on exactly. This was on at like 6 foot at night in tight leather kind of clothes sometimes and things like this battling. And there was a lot of like sexual context in this show as well. But it just is for me as this was a network TV and things like this. But for me as a long running for 7 seasons. I know a lot. There's the X-Files. There's I said, The Walking Dead, the Stranger Things, things like that. But I don't think in terms of just a fun horror kind of thing, adventure action series, that I just don't think anyone's they've tried to do a very similar thing. Because it's a bit teen.
Yeah, it kind of mixes teen drama, doesn't it?
But it has some
martial arts fight scenes.
But it's just, there are some scenes and I literally I think back to it and think like that. There's the episode with the silent twin guys. They're
Yeah.
tall and things, which is so fucking scary, but it's also so fucking funny. It always makes me laugh when I think of the scene when she loses her voice, Buffy,
Yeah.
and it has the scene where she goes to do what she thinks is the symbol for staking someone, and then she like looks at herself and goes, "Shit, that's for like that's wanking," like kind of thing.
Yet again,
and they're all looking at her like, "What are you talking about?" Because they were just talking about a guy a second ago. So it's like, "What are you doing tonight?" And it's just moments like that that just it's heartbreaking at times. It's scary. It could be really scary at times. It had a range of different monsters that made you. It had a cast that were just actors that were all fantastic. Like most of the time, there was rarely ever like weak links in it. You know, we had some seasons where the main villain sometimes maybe wasn't completely up to par. And lots of people hate her sister when her sister came in.
That's when I stopped watching it because I found her sister just so dry. And by then, I just kind of lost interest. But it was still.
I think there's a season based around her, and then it's the season after. But then there's one. Did you ever see the one when her mum dies?
Yeah, but by then I was kind
of the body. Like I just think that's literally one of my favorite episodes of TV that's ever been done.
I'd started to clock out by then, unfortunately, because I think that's in the season with her sister.
Yeah, I think that's the second to last season. I think.
Yeah, I'd started to.
That's when it had gotten to more like, oh, we've actually got to deal with real life after that, and then after that, Buffy kind of has to become the parent, and it has to deal with a lot of like adult life problems now. But yeah, that episode there that I was watching, that's not a scary episode. That is one of their dramatic episodes. But that episode where she has to react to the fact that her mum's dead, and in a series where everyone gets killed, people get killed all the time, but by random mysterious monsters and vampires.
Yeah.
And yet her mum's just lying there, and it becomes like scary in a completely different way of this is how it could happen. You could just come home and find your mum, your dad, your partner, like just there. She's just lying on the sofa. And she's dead, and she imagines a version where actually they come in and they can save her. But then she's on the phone and she says to them like she's cold, and they just go, "Oh, their tone on the phone changes completely the same." She says she's cold. Oh, okay, they'll be with you soon. Like there's nothing else they can say. It's like she's dead. That is just like an amazing episode. But then, as you said, like the Master in season 1 is scary. Like even if you were just binge watching the first season, you'd get horror enjoyment purely out of that. That's my number one. It's I can talk about Buffy. I think it's great.
I know you can. You know.
It's your turn for number one. What's yours?
I think you already know what my number one is, man.
I mean, it's got to be Mads, right?
Yeah, it's my
Hannibal,
boy Mads.
Right?
It's Hannibal. It is one of my favorite.
I got 2 points there. 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Not bad.
It was it's just one of my favorite seasons. And one of my favorite shows in general. It's hard to kind of talk about it.
It's one like Hannibal. Like we have. This is a nice one where we've both watched beginning to end, so we can talk about this one clearly. It is just such a good. I mean, Mads Mikkelsen is amazing.
But where do we? That's the thing. Where do we start with this?
I mean, what I was just thinking was there are a lot of people out there who I know who watched it, and they only watched part of the first series and gave up.
No,
because part of the first there's a big change over this where it was on a standard network, which sadly it never it should have been made on fucking HBO or something, and it would have ran then. But sadly, they put it onto a standard American network, NBC, which did not know what the fuck to do with a show like this, because this show is dark, weird, realistic and gritty, and
it's so
psychologically scary,
it's so grand, and
like it does not look like anything that's ever been on a network TV show, because it is made like a high profile like HBO show.
It is.
And I have no idea why someone didn't get it. Brian Fuller, who always gets fired from his fucking jobs, or when he does stick around, his show gets cancelled. But if you watch the first season is vastly different than where the show goes.
Yeah.
The first few episodes are very killer of the week.
Well, I mean, most of the
which I don't mind, but I know some people just thought, this is like every other procedural cop show.
Yeah, and it starts off a little bit like that about this proceed. It kind of does start off as one of these procedural kind of oh, is this a bit like The Wire, or is this a bit like something like that? But
so Will is very like, and Will is kind of like where you've got like I don't watch most of those kind of shit. I don't like those procedural American ones,
Neither
like
do I.
CSI, Mentalist, whatever, where it's got like it's not like the Mentalist where it's like he's got some kind of gift that he can recognize it. I think
Yeah.
and this is kind of what the Will character for some people kind of, if they don't even watch the first bit, like, oh, it's just like it's kind of like a creepy horror version of that where he's got this kind of higher ability to understand the killer kind of thing. It's like, well, no, that's not, that's a basic boring version of what it is. But one thing the show always had right from the beginning, and this is where I know some people got turned off, is because it's got such like the whole the whole antlers, like the whole visually. I mean, this show's beautiful from the very beginning.
Amazing.
It's like the cinematography is like a film cinematography. It is gorgeous, and that what I mean, the antlers stuff. But if you don't give it your chance to get it, then it becomes a really weird, like, what the fuck is going on? This is meant to be this is meant to be a detective show where they solve the murder of the film. It's like, no, well, that's not. You're being too basic with a show.
Yeah, all this is supposed to be Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah,
and it's this weird kind of thing where, I mean, season 3 and 4, do get to Hannibal and Red Dragon.
Yeah, they do.
And both of those, for me, are done better than the films.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it kind of, it's about this. It's hard to describe. I mean, because you do for the first, potentially, first season and a little bit in the second, you do get a bit of the, killer of the week and who is this person, and each person and each of the killers are really interesting it's this kind of exploration of human, the human psyche and all of this kind of stuff. But then it's also the background relationship about Will Graham, who's played amazingly by Hugh Dancy. And then you get the introduction of, Mads Mikkelsen, who he's my favourite Hannibal Lecter. But I think because he was so different to what people expected, he's not the jumpsuit wearing, mask wearing, hello, Clarice.
Yeah, he's not over the top. He's like your real therapist. He'll sit there quietly and like your real therapist. Like, I don't have a therapist. It's not really something we have. Like, I know lots of people do have them, but I know in America they're quite a popular thing.
Yeah, they are.
Here, we bottle it all up and then we die.
Yeah, we die.
But no, he is very much that though, isn't he? He's this silent, calculating listening. And he's not hamming it up. He's not over the top or anything like Anthony Hopkins, which is not like Anthony Hopkins was perfect for his role in Silence of the Lamb because he had like 8 minutes of screen time. Is it something like that? In the end, it works out something like that.
He didn't have much.
In that kind of situation, you've got to make it. You've got to do something to make yourself stand out and make him scary.
Yeah.
Whereas now
you've got a TV series. You've got 13 episodes.
We've got a slow build, and at first, even you as the person watching are like, I know this is Hannibal Lecter, and at the same time, for some reason, why is my mind still making me like, not just like this guy, but also my mind's making me think, is he actually going to be the killer? Because like everyone else doesn't know it, and you kind of sometimes get lulled, and that's how strong the performance is that you're kind of like, I like him, and why do I kind of feel? I feel like you're not actually going to be the murderous Hannibal Lecter.
Why do I want to be friends with this guy? And
I want to go to dinner with you. I don't want to go to dinner with you. Why do I want to go to dinner with you?
And we get this. I mean, the cast itself is just incredible. So we get Hugh Dancy as Will Graham, who does a much better performance than Edward Norton. I can't remember who plays him in.
Yeah, I mean I mean Red Dragon, although a completely watchable one, is not an amazing. It's not an amazing adaptation of that story in a way. It's not. It's not got the best director behind it either. To be fair,
no. But then
Brett Ratner's not great.
Yeah, but then we also obviously Mads Mikkelsen, as we've touched on. You get Lawrence Fishburne, who is who's always reliable. But not only that, but he can pull out a good performance, and he can pull out a great performance.
Yeah,
and Lawrence Fishburne is almost he almost strikes me as like wine, Like if you watch his earlier stuff, he like Dream Warriors, and when he started to get roles, he was good. And then when you watch him in stuff like Boys in the Hood, he's incredible. And then as Morpheus, he's great. And then you kind of always think
he matures like a fine wine.
He matures like a fine wine. He just gets better, and his role as
he does get better. I'd even say in a way that the man gets better looking.
Yeah, the man does get better
the
looking.
The man gets better. He's with age. I don't know. I think that guy, like, you look at him, Hannibal, and you're like, damn, that guy's like, even though he's got like he's got facially, he's got like, skin like from like, I think, scars and things like that.
Some scars.
But he's still like, damn, you feel like, whereas younger, it like looks a bit like strange on him, whereas when he's older, it's like, look at that guy.
He's looking, and the whole cast,
and he looks like Lawrence Fishburne. I don't know why in Hannibal I always thought like, damn, that dude looks like he could basically take out that entire room by himself. He looks butch,
and that's it. His character just commands.
He is
so
the
much.
macho character in the show. Like, it's a show that hasn't really got masculinity, I'd say, in a way.
Well,
like, he is the masculinity of this show.
It plays with this whole, like, that's
what
the
is
thing.
Masculinity?
It plays with this whole idea of masculinity, of relationships. It even gets like borderline homoerotic.
It does, between them.
I said this to Anna when we watched the new trailer for the new Top Gun.
Yeah,
I was like, Top Gun was made special not by its jets and not by stuff like that, but by its homoeroticism, man. Like, this film doesn't have much in it.
The trailer doesn't have any. There's not. You're like, where's the fucking beach ball scene?
There's a beach ball scene in it, but.
Is there a new one?
I saw a dude with his top off playing beach ball.
Okay,
so
I was gonna say, it's not Tom Cruise. Though,
yeah, it's not Tom Cruise, but it didn't. This film does play with this weird kind of relationship, and if you like, I'm part of a Hannibal meme group, and the people in there always put memes about Hannibal and Will being in a relationship and stuff like that. And I mean, yeah, I think Brian Fuller gay? I think he is.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And it does have this, this kind of thing about what is
a lot of people hope, a lot of people like, in season 4 that definitely would have gone like that.
Well, you're thinking like you either need to kill each other or you need to fuck. Yeah. One of the two is happening.
But that is it. It's that kind of relationship taken to its very far. It's like what people say, like with like your whole, Batman and Joker is like you've got this pent up because you're basically like perfect for each other.
Yeah,
so it's kind of this built up like you're actually what each other, a part of what each other wants. Kind of thing.
That's it. It's like complete. It's like other halves, isn't it?
Yeah,
but not like.
But then not saying because I think if you look at the character of like Will and stuff like that, like it's the same. Like you've got this kind of sexual tension, which is what makes this work so well. Is the two actors, Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen, they're incredible together. Is amazing together. And I think that's why it works so well, because when you've got two men that are on this level of chemistry, it's hard not to start thinking like, oh, this is like when two people should be like together kind of thing. Even though if you look at the character Will and stuff like that, it doesn't actually ever, I don't believe that would have been a good way for the show.
No, I don't think it would.
Because it doesn't make sense with Will as a character. Mads, I'd completely believe that he's whatever he wants to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. I believe that Hannibal Lecter would do whatever he wants.
He just wants to lay pipe. You know
what I mean?
But I don't know. It's this idea of the relationships and that it's kind of Batman and Joker almost, where they need each other.
Yeah,
and they're not, and it's frenemies. It's when it's crossing the line between being enemies and then needing each other to function almost. It's very weird.
With like Red Dragon, the books and things like that, it brings them together quite well. But this show kind of takes that Will and kind of brings out much more to that character. I think this show probably even more than the original novels brings two characters together in a much more even more interesting way than even the original novels kind of thought of the characters. Because obviously Will is a character that only is mainly Red Dragon.
He's Red Dragon.
You know what I mean? The other ones are different characters. They're more Clarice, actually.
Yeah, they are.
And they've taken several stories that are Clarice's stories as well, like Hannibal, and twisted it into a Will story and a Will and thing, but still kept the main ideas of
and
what
the
happened.
Main theme and the essence.
They've just removed, and like if you've seen the Hannibal film, I'd actually almost say that, to be fair, in the Hannibal film, you could have removed Clarice from that story completely, and it didn't really make a huge difference.
Not really, no.
Like, whereas in Will, in this one, is still bringing the world that they've created with the Hannibal series so far, whereas Hannibal's off living a completely new story and a new life.
Yeah,
and that's how they nicely meld it together. Whereas, like the Julianne Moore one, she's just not really like. I'm watching the Hannibal story, and this part's quite good, but any part that involved Clarice in that story was kind of what brought that film down. It wasn't just that Anthony Hopkins was pushed more into the screen, as I think we've said this in the past, that the more he had, the more it was like you should have stayed as a side character, not as a front. Whereas in this case, Mads, it's like, take as much time as you want.
Yeah, it gives.
And then watching, like,
but then not only that, you get Caroline Daveners, who's also great as Alana Bloom, Hetini Park, Lawrence Fishburne, who we spoke about, and then you get Gillian Anderson in it, who's
I wasn't that keen. She was the only one of them that I really liked Gillian Anderson. I felt like she was very much playing to a type that I'd seen her play so many times that like she was the only one where sometimes I was like, I like her, and she had a good bounce off with Mads kind of thing.
Yeah, I loved her in it.
And we also had,
but then we get
Michael Pitt as Mason
Verger, who I loved.
The first Mason Verger though, because he didn't reprise it for the second part. Mason Verger.
Yeah, he didn't, did he? But I loved. I mean, Michael Pitt was great, and
he was really creepy. I thought.
Yeah, and I think because I read the books, and I think he read into a bit more like that. But then we also get Eddie Izzard, who's absolutely great in it.
He's a brand new created character, but he's nice that he is he's Will's that gets to have a look. He's like Will gets to properly see a killer kind of on the loose, whereas obviously Hannibal is in the background. So Will gets to kind of see how this could really play out, and gets to kind of. And Eddie Izzard, luckily for him, as Gideon. Is it Gideon?
Abel Gideon.
Gideon. He gets to have that kind of. He almost gets to be. Eddie Izzard is almost Anthony Hopkins,
almost, isn't he? Yeah.
In this show,
he's
almost the closest we get to that version of a Hannibal.
He
kind
is,
of
isn't
thing.
he?
Like he's using that, and it's nice actually because we get that balance to see why that could work a little bit. Like he's only in it in little parts.
Yeah.
But you get that nice bounce off. And
then we also get another Scream Queen who I've loved since being a very young boy, Catherine Isabel, you know?
Oh, yeah.
As Margot Verger. And I mean, so the casting is just brilliant. Some of the imagery is just fantastic. But then there's also just the level of gore doesn't hold back, and it doesn't restrain itself.
No, this was the thing that was like, and this was why it was kind of so hard to kind of, I think, sell, because they'd made this show and it was just like visually that looked nothing like she would normally be on network TV, and then graphic details was like, fuck, there's never been anything of this level of gore like on TV, and it's not even like necessarily like where it's blood pouring out, like not in the beginning anyway.
No,
it's more like opened up bodies and things like that,
just
which is technically more anatomy. I think is how they got away with it, because it's like, well, this is just human anatomy, maybe with a deer's head on top.
Yeah, but and there's other weird kind of grim stuff in it, like I'm just trying to think some of the first series where we have that person who's burying people and growing mushrooms on them.
And you get the body that gets taken out that's still partially alive. But covered in like mushroom.
The woman giving lobotomies to people, taking their eyes out.
Yeah, I mean, when they do the whole because obviously from about midway through season 2, it changes to Will's in prison. It becomes much more the Hannibal and Will.
It becomes more about the dynamic and trying to catch him.
I think is what it was a kind of I think that's what caused a little bit of the network very much wanted to say as like a procedural show, because they thought that's where more people are interested.
Yeah,
and I think Brian Fuller was very much trying to go, no, this we want to tell the actual stories, and this is prohibiting us from moving on to Will and Hannibal as the key point of this. Otherwise, we get bogged down every time we have to tell a different story every week. And it does, for better or worse. Like that's kind of one thing. Like the early seasons, where some people might, this is just a kind of weird, strange procedural instead of like actually a Hannibal show at first. That's why I think a few people got kind of thrown off by it, that it didn't get to actually just tell the full Hannibal Will story. It had to constantly be distracted by this. Even though the stuff that they bring in for a procedural weekly, the deaths and stuff and the different kind of killers are really interesting and stuff like that. You can tell it starts to go away from that with what's her story? The one that at first they think is the actual Hannibal killer. It played out in the first season. Into the second season, Hannibal takes her under his wing, kind of thing, tries to protect her. But
Abigail.
Abigail, yeah.
What's her last name? Abigail Hobbs.
Yeah. The dad's like a hunter. So the dad was a killer in his own right,
And
where
if she's been involved, and then they have that parental relationship with her, and
it gets really weird.
And
that's when it's the end of season 2, isn't it? When that proper kicks off.
Yeah.
Was that season 1?
I don't know. We won't give away too many spoilers.
When we have the kitchen scene, kind of thing. That one.
Incredible. Like I said, season 2 of the show is one of the best season finales I've ever seen.
Yeah, it is very good.
Should we go to this before we finish? We go to the social media lounge.
Let's go over. We had a few on our Instagram. Did we have any on the old
I didn't
tweets?
put anything up on the Twitter. I've been so busy. So we're kind of getting some recordings in before I go away. I'm on holiday, so I've been busy preparing stuff for that I remembered last night that we were recording today, and I meant to put a status up on our Twitter at CMTH Podcast. But I went to see No Time to Die, and I forgot. So I think the only thing we've got from the social media lounge is over on Instagram.
There we go. Right, I was trying to find them there, but there's a few things been posted recently. Check out the old Insta for that stuff. So we've got our mates over at Discount Podcast, and we've got the Creep Show.
Yeah,
Creep Show is amazing, and so is the new one. Surprisingly, they've also said.
Yeah.
So I know you watch Creep Show, don't you?
I watch it on Shudder. It's just the third season's just come out.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome, great show.
We've got Lucy8689 who comments quite often, so it's nice that she's added in. She had Ash vs. the Evil Dead.
Nice.
She wrote a few American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Penny Dreadful.
I've never got around to watching that, but it's been on the list for a while.
Yeah, some of these are kind of more like the ones not everyone's kind of see. Hannibal's on there. Salem. I don't know that one.
I know that. That's yet again one that Ross told me about. It's on Netflix. I can't quite remember what it's about, but it's to do with witches. And
I thought I had heard that one. I think I might have heard it more that it might have been cancelled after like the season or two. I might be wrong on that. Slasher she's put The Exorcist TV show.
I heard about that again.
Yeah, that was another one. It was on NBC as well. Same network. First season, really I think it was really well received.
Yeah.
Really thing, but again, they didn't have a fucking clue what to do with it, so it got cancelled. I know we had a few that have also mentioned. I'm just kind of scanning around here to make sure I'm getting all the coverage. And I know we had what was the one that was mentioned? They also mentioned Virgo Creep, and that's that they mentioned Midnight Mass.
Nice.
Which they watched, that they've just finished and were loving it, and Hill House and Bly Manor. So the Mike Flanagan one's got thrown in there, and also mentioned about that he's doing the new adaptation of The House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe.
Which will be his
next project.
That'll be interesting.
Mike Flanagan on Netflix, so that's cool. Another book adaptation, and from the style I know of Mike Flanagan, Poe sounds perfect for him.
Yeah,
same way. So that's I think that's about all of them. There might have been one they were kind of getting thrown around a bit. I think I may have double posted at one point, so if I missed anyone, I apologise. But yeah, there's a few good choices in there. And I mean, there are so many other ones. And as I said, we'll come back to this. I think
yeah,
we'll come back to
we definitely will.
These are definitely like some of our pin ones. Pin ones?
Yeah, these are some of our pin ones.
Not gonna lie, I don't know why, but I started to say pen or pin or penis.
Penis, yes, the classic.
Just go for that, yeah. These are some of our favourite ones, but that doesn't mean there's not a ton more. When I looked down them, there was such a list. So yeah, I think we'll come back to our favourite horror TV shows, or maybe just episodes on certain ones. So as we said, if Bobby watches Hill House, maybe we'll go into that one a bit more. If we watch certain other one-off series, we'll probably try to throw them in with our movie reviews as well and talk us through it.
And as always, if you've enjoyed the show, come and let us know your favourite horror TV series on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. There's plenty we've missed, so come and tell us your favourite ones. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. And come back on Friday the 15th as we release our much anticipated Halloween Kills review.
Yeah.
Which we're going to do straight from the cinema. So we will see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.